The streets of Copenhagen were painted in the soft glow of golden streetlights. Bicycles leaned against brick walls, and the distant hum of trams echoed along the canals. It was the kind of evening where everything seemed peaceful, almost too peaceful. Mikkel Svensson had just returned from his shift at the small bookshop on Copenhagen. He was exhausted, his mind occupied only with thoughts of a warm meal and the comfort of his modest apartment in Norrebro. But as he reached the wooden door of his building, he heard a familiar voice calling from behind. "Good evening, Mikkel," said Herr Andersen, the elderly man who lived 2 doors down. His cane tapped lightly against the cobblestones as he approached. His face, though tired, held a gentle smile. Mikkel smiled politely. "Good evening, Herr Andersen. How are you feeling today?" The old man sighed. Not so well. My leg has been troubling me again. There is a favor I must ask of you, if you do not mind." Mikkel hesitated for a moment. He had planned to spend the night quietly, but Herr Andersen had always been kind to him, often sharing stories about the old days in Copenhagen. Out of respect, Mikkel nodded. "Of course. What do you need?" "There is a parcel waiting for me at the courier office near Nyhavn," Herr Andersen explained. "I was supposed to fetch it today, but I simply cannot manage the walk. Would you be so kind as to collect it for me?" It sounded harmless enough. A parcel. A simple errand. Yet there was something in the way Herr Andersen avoided eye contact, his fingers gripping the handle of his cane a little too tightly. Mikkel noticed, but he brushed it aside. After all, what harm could come from picking up a neighbor's package? He agreed, and within minutes, Mikkel was back on the streets, walking towards Nyhavn. The night air was crisp, and the reflections of the colorful buildings shimmered in the water. The city seemed calm, almost serene. But as he reached the courier office, a sense of unease began to settle over him. The clerk behind the counter gave him a long, suspicious look. "You are here for Herr Andersen's parcel, yes?" "Yes," Mikkel replied. "He sent me to collect it." The clerk hesitated before sliding a medium-sized box across the counter. His eyes lingered on Mikkel's face, as though trying to memorize every detail. "Be careful on your way home," the clerk muttered under his breath. Mikkel frowned, clutching the parcel tightly. The words echoed in his mind as he stepped outside. The streets seemed darker now, the shadows longer, the silence heavier. And then, just as he crossed the bridge, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow at first, then quicker, sharper, closing in. Mikkel turned his head. 2 men were following him, their eyes fixed on the parcel in his arms. The quiet evening in Copenhagen was no longer quiet. The bridge over the canal was almost empty, only the sound of water lapping against the stone walls below. Mikkel's steps grew quicker, the parcel held close to his chest. Behind him, the 2 men advanced with a confidence that made his skin crawl. One of them, tall and lean, wore a dark coat buttoned all the way to the throat. The other, broader in frame, had a shaved head that glistened under the streetlight. Neither said a word. They only followed. Mikkel turned onto a narrower street, hoping they might lose interest, but their footsteps echoed after him, relentless and steady. He slipped into a side alley lined with bicycles, his heart pounding louder than the church bells of Copenhagen's towers. He stopped, trying to calm his breathing, clutching the box tightly. For a moment, silence returned. Perhaps they had gone. Perhaps he was imagining it. But then, at the other end of the alley, the 2 men appeared again. This time closer. "Hand it over," the tall one said, his voice low, commanding. Mikkel froze. His mind raced. What could be in this parcel that made strangers chase him through the city at night? He thought of Herr Andersen, of the trembling in his neighbor's hands, of the way the clerk's eyes had darkened with warning. Mikkel turned and ran. The men gave chase, their heavy boots striking the cobblestones. Through narrow lanes and along the canal, Mikkel darted past startled passers-by, his breath sharp in the freezing air. He crossed another bridge, the lights of Nyhavn glittering behind him. But the men did not stop. At last, he ducked into a courtyard behind a bakery, crouching low behind a stack of wooden crates. His chest burned, his arms shaking around the box. The footsteps passed, fading slowly into the night. He had escaped.
For now.
But the parcel felt heavier in his hands than before. And he knew the peace of Copenhagen had been shattered. By the time Mikkel returned to Narrebro, his legs were trembling. He slipped quietly into the stairwell of his building and knocked softly on Herr Andersen's door. The old man opened it at once, as if he had been waiting. "Ah, you have it," Andersen said, his voice eager. Mikkel hesitated. "Two men followed me.
They wanted this."
"What is going on, Herr Andersen?" The old man's smile faltered. His eyes darted to the box, then to the hallway behind Mikkel. He pulled him inside quickly and locked the door. "You must listen to me carefully," Andersen whispered. His apartment smelled faintly of tobacco and old books. The curtains were drawn tight, as though he feared prying eyes. "This parcel is not safe. It contains something that others would kill for." "What is it?" Mikkel demanded. Andersen shook his head. "The less you know, the better."
"You must trust me, Mikkel."
"You must trust that I did not mean to involve you. But it is too late now." The old man's hands trembled as he took the box. For the first time, Mikkel saw fear etched deep into Andersen's wrinkled face. "You should leave, Mikkel. Forget this ever happened." But forgetting was impossible. The memory of the men, the sound of their pursuit, the look in the clerk's eyes, it all clung to him. And the question burned hotter than ever. What was inside that parcel? That night, Mikkel could not sleep. The city outside his window seemed restless, the air filled with a tension he could not shake. Finally, against his better judgment, he crept back to Andersen's door. There was no answer. The door was locked, the apartment silent. Mikkel tried again the next morning.
Still nothing.
Neighbors said they had not seen Andersen since the night before. It was as if he had vanished. Worried, Mikkel returned to his bookshop job, but his mind wandered. At midday, curiosity consumed him. He returned to the building, and this time, he found Andersen's door ajar. The apartment was in disarray. Papers scattered, furniture overturned, curtains ripped open. The box was gone. But on the floor near the desk, Mikkel found something. A small torn piece of brown wrapping paper with strange markings inked across it. Not letters, not numbers, but symbols he did not recognize. His stomach twisted. Someone had taken Andersen. Someone had taken the parcel. And those symbols were the only clue left behind. Mikkel folded the scrap carefully into his pocket. He was now part of this, whether he wished it or not. Later that evening, Mikkel sat at a bench near the canal, staring at the torn paper. His fingers traced the symbols, his mind searching for meaning. A shadow fell across him. "You should not be holding that," a voice said. Mikkel looked up to see a woman, tall and striking, with dark hair tucked beneath a wool hat. Her eyes were sharp, watchful. She sat beside him, without invitation. "My name is Katrine," she said. "I know what you carry. And I know who took your neighbor." Mikkel stiffened. "How do you know?" Katrine glanced around before speaking again. "Those men are part of a network that moves things through Copenhagen. Dangerous things. Your neighbor was not as innocent as you believed." "Then what is in the parcel?" Mikkel pressed. Katrine shook her head. "Not here."
"Not now."
"But if you want answers, meet me tomorrow at Rosenborg Gardens." "Come alone." Before he could respond, she stood and walked away, vanishing into the night. Mikkel stared after her, his pulse racing. He had wanted answers. Now he had them within reach. But who was Katrine? Friend or trap? The next day, frost clung to the grass as Mikkel entered Rosenborg Gardens. The castle loomed in the distance, its towers piercing the pale winter sky. He scanned the pathways, searching for Katrine. She appeared from behind the trees, her scarf pulled high against the cold. "You came," she said. "I need to know the truth," Mikkel replied. Katrine studied him for a long moment. Then she handed him a folded paper. It showed the same symbols as the torn scrap he carried, only arranged in a pattern. "They are codes," Katrine explained. "Coordinates." The parcel contained documents, stolen intelligence that others want to control. Your neighbor was a courier. A very important one. Mikkel's breath caught. Then he is in danger. "He already is," Katrine said softly. "And now, so are you." A sudden crack echoed through the garden. Not a branch, not the wind, but something sharper. A warning! Mikkel and Katrine turned. Across the park, two figures stood watching them. The men from the bridge. The silence shattered. Mikkel grabbed the paper and ran, Katrine at his side. The men shouted. Their footsteps thundered behind them, scattering pigeons into the air. Through the frozen gardens, past statues and hedges, they ran. The castle walls loomed closer, but there was no safety there. Only more open ground. Katrine pulled Mikkel into a service gate, down narrow stone steps that led to the streets beyond. They emerged onto a cobbled road, breathless, the winter air slicing at their lungs. "This will not stop," Katrine said, gripping his arm. "They will not stop until they have the codes." "Anderson," Mikkel panted. "Where is he?" "They will use him," Katrine replied. "As leverage. Unless we find him first." For the first time, Mikkel realized he was trapped in something far greater than a neighbor's favor. By nightfall, Katrine led Mikkel to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Copenhagen's docks. Inside, the air was damp, heavy with the scent of salt and rust. "This is where they keep people they take," she whispered. "We must be careful." From the shadows, voices drifted. Men speaking in hushed tones. The sound of boots on metal stairs. And then Mikkel saw him. Herr Anderson, bound to a chair in the center of the warehouse, his face pale but his eyes still alive with defiance. Relief surged through Mikkel, but it was short-lived, because standing guard beside Anderson was the tall man in the dark coat. His gaze was fixed on the shadows where Mikkel and Katrine hid, as if he already knew they were there. Before Mikkel could react, Katrine's hand tightened on his arm. Too tight. "I am sorry," she whispered. He turned to her in shock. But she had already stepped forward, out of the shadows, into the light of the warehouse. The men greeted her with nods. Respect. Recognition.
Katrine was not his ally.
She had been leading him here all along. The tall man smirked. "You see, Mikkel, trust is a dangerous thing. And now you will give us the codes." Mikkel's heart pounded as the truth settled over him. He had been lured into their trap, and Anderson's fate, and his own, now hung by a thread. The warehouse doors slammed shut. The men closed in. Anderson shouted a warning, his voice hoarse but urgent. Mikkel's mind raced. The codes in his pocket, the betrayal of Katrine, the circle tightening around him. He had seconds, perhaps less. The tall man stepped forward. "Give them to me." But Mikkel did not move. His eyes darted to the crates stacked nearby, the rusted chains hanging from the rafters. In that split second, instinct took over. He hurled the folded paper into the air. As the men lunged for it, he grabbed a chain and pulled with all his strength. The crates toppled, crashing to the ground with a deafening roar. Chaos erupted. Anderson struggled free in the confusion. Mikkel darted forward, seizing his arm, dragging him toward the back exit. The night air hit them like fire as they burst out onto the docks. Behind them, shouts rang out, furious and desperate. But the darkness of Copenhagen's harbor swallowed them, offering one last chance at freedom. Mikkel did not look back. He only ran, the old man beside him, the cold wind against his face. The favor had become a nightmare. But he was alive, and the city, though dangerous, still held shadows deep enough to hide him.